Welcome to Tripping Over Love, where we talk all about breakdowns, breakups, and breakthroughs. I'm Courtney Corona with Keith Miller.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Tripping Over Love. I'm by myself today because Courtney had a scheduled conflict, and I want to still do this interview with Stacey Garcia and just tell you a little bit about her first. It's a great conversation. Stacey Garcia is the creator and the host of a podcast called Never Miss a Monday. And she talks about that a little bit at the very end of our conversation. Basically, she explores a lot of the issues we talk about on the show. Internal consistency, self-trust, what it takes for you to take care of your whole body, your mind in the long run. And her work is at this interesting sort of meeting of physical training, because she's a former dancer and athlete, and nutrition, also energetic awareness, for lack of a better word. But like when we talk about what that means to work with energy, because she's a Reiki master healer as well. She's an integrative nutrition coach, and she's a personal trainer. And basically, if you're someone who is stuck or tired of starting over, tired of chasing motivation or trying to get some outcome, and you're realizing it's self-defeating, she helps people retrain their minds to emphasize more sustainable habits, stuff we talk about. She talks about embodying discipline. I won't spoil it for you. I think there's a great conversation, and she talks about her personal journey with health and illness. I wasn't expecting her to share about that, and if you struggled with cancer or know somebody who has, this is a great episode for you. You're welcome to just dive into whatever. It's
because you're a therapist, right? Because I could ask you lots of questions.
Yes. Yeah, this could be dangerous. But I'm here to ask you questions, Stacy. Great to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Really good. And I want to start by like falling on my sword, because my co-host is not here, and Courtney is always with me doing this podcast, as you know, and in part, that's because I have something going on in my brain that, like, when I'm in charge of scheduling things, which I am for a bunch of things, I'm just horrible at it. I'm the last guy that anybody should ask to do it. And so I screwed up the schedule. You were so gracious to still make it here. And so thank you for
Oh my
for
goodness.
being here.
I don't sweat that type of stuff. So don't even stress about it. I figured we would somehow align in some way, and I'm glad it's today.
Yeah, great. Well, so I'm curious to dive in and ask a little bit about, you're a Reiki master practitioner, you're a body worker, you work with nutrition. There's a whole range of things that we can talk about, fitness, but also mindset. I'm really interested to hear about mindset. And starting with your own personal mindset, if you can talk about anything you've tried to be really consistent about that you ended up realizing was hurting you. You developed a good habit, but then it became something that was difficult. Is that something that resonates?
That's a really interesting question, and my answer could go a few different ways. I'll start off with my background. So I was a dancer turned personal trainer in my 20s. My mid-20s. And at that point, I feel like everything was diet and exercise. Like that was what everyone focused on. The gym that I was a part of, we did do a lot of mindset work, which was really amazing. But I always felt like there was something more that I was missing. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer almost a couple of years ago. And I literally thought I was the healthiest human walking. And it definitely woke me up to thinking, wait a second, I am definitely missing something. And what is it? And I had to go back to like what I call my non-negotiables that I am just so consistent with, which is my diet, which is exercise, which is meditation. Now, what I think I was really unconscious was how I handled my stress. At the time, I thought I was handling it really, really well. And I thought,
how are you handling it? Like, what was that?
So I was meditating every morning. I'd wake up and I'd meditate, and that's all I did. Well, what about the rest of the day? And I don't think I realized at the time, oh no, you have to definitely, and I have all the practices now, but back then I did not have those tools. and I thought I did. And it wasn't until that diagnosis that really woke me up to saying, okay, meditation is phenomenal, but just meditating 5-10 minutes in the morning is not going to cut it. And I do believe that a lot of our disease comes from an imbalance with our nervous system and how we handle stress. So that really is what changed for me. I thought I was doing everything right when I don't believe I was even like starting to, to really focus on that.
Right. Can we talk about Gabor Maté? Are you familiar with his work?
No, tell me about him.
So, I'm not an expert and I haven't met him, but he is a former oncologist that retired as an oncologist, I believe, in order to become a speaker and a advocate for discussing the link between cancer incidence and what he calls hyper caretaking or compulsive caretaking. And he says the way that the nervous system works and our immune system, when we're constantly on for other people, when we have that gene or that predisposition or training, whatever it is, that taxes our immune system and our immune system gets blunted because of the steroids, the hormones that are involved in activation for taking care of other people. So he what makes me uncomfortable about hearing him speak about this is that at the same time it's amazing because he's speaking about something nobody really talks about, is that you never want to say that somebody got cancer because of it's in their head. That's the most inhospitable, inhumane thing you could say. But he's saying, look, the data is suggesting that the lifestyles of certain people, cancer doesn't just happen to, it gets turned on in the environment and genes. And I don't know what you think about that.
So I absolutely believe that is to be true. And it's funny that you say that because my first session with Reiki as a client was 2 weeks after I had a double mastectomy. And she pretty much told me from what I shared with her and her experience, because she used to work in oncology departments and she was there sitting with women having chemo and giving energy healing and everything. She's like, I'm not a specialist. However, in my experience, most women that develop breast cancer are overgivers. And that was kind of a practice that I tried stopping immediately, obviously, with a lot of help and education and support of filling my cup first before filling everyone else's. And I could tell you right now, I was that person. Absolutely.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Really? And my business now is called Self-Care with Stacy because I believe that really focusing on yourself can help so incredibly much, not just to make you a happier, healthier person, but to help prevent disease in the future. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay, so this is really fascinating. I think a lot of people will appreciate digging into this a little bit more. Can you talk about how do you go about changing a predisposition or an impulse to be a caretaker? And how does that even work? How do you get in tune? How do you retune your body and your mind?
That's a great question. I'll tell you my personal experience. So I have to say, I'm an internal optimist. That's something that is part of my DNA. My parents are like that. I'm just a glass half full type of girl, which has
We'll get along very well.
It has helped, right? I mean, it really does help look on the brighter side of everything. And so I'm very thankful I have that. Not everyone naturally has that. And then you're talking about reprogramming a whole lot more. So I was already an optimist. However, when I was told this, and I was told that I'm kind of like an oak tree and I'm always taking care of everyone, I'm standing really strong. And I started taking like homeopathic herbs to kind of help retrain and, consciously looking at this every day. You do not need to be the oak tree. You can start setting very healthy boundaries for yourself. And I'm not going to say it was easy. I had to almost let go of certain relationships or not get invited to things as much because everything was in my home. I was always a hostess. I was always bringing everyone together. And when you stop over exerting yourself so much, you will see where people meet you and you will see where people kind of start falling away. And to be honest, it's very eye-opening. And amazing, but it's not easy. And I really had to make myself kind of take a back seat. And I think I'm still finding the balance in all, but it definitely has helped. And especially with my children too, being a mother of 2 young children, I've definitely had to take certain boundaries where, sometimes I'll say, you know what, I'm going to have to go for a walk right now. And I take my dog for a walk and I just come back and I'm a much healthier mom as opposed to staying in an environment that is so stressful and trying to work things that shouldn't be worked out in that exact moment and like kind of waiting for that cooling down period. So there's a lot of practice to it. I think a lot of talk therapy is very helpful. A lot of self-discovery, why you do the things that you do, a lot of reading, listening to the right thought-provoking podcasts. I think it's just so multifaceted.
Yeah. What's your take on the approach of trying to befriend the cancer that you have? Because the metaphor is usually fight the cancer and we're going to go to war. And understandably, right, we have to do that. It will get us if we don't do that. Like our immune system is fighting things all the time. It's not befriending the viruses, right? It's eliminating them. However, mentally, like as you may know from your work, my work has shown me over the years that what we resist persists. That's just how our nervous system works. It's just like resistance training in the gym. And so ironically, we get stuck with the things that we don't want because we're pushing against them. We don't realize we are attaching ourselves to it by trying to get rid of it, fighting it. Does that make any sense? Because I imagine some people would hear that and be like, that is total BS. Like, befriend my cancer? What does that mean?
It's so true. Because I think once you're diagnosed with cancer, you're like, get this out of me. Like, get this foreign object out of me. But is it foreign? No, it's actually your own cells that have just gone awry. So I think that it's a huge mindset shift. I mean, I went into quote unquote battle. My surgery, I was wearing my Wonder Woman socks. Like I was like, let's go. And I think it took me a second because I'm telling you, within that recovery period where I was like forced to stay still for so long and I couldn't move, really pushed me into this whole mental and emotional and spiritual recovery where you do have to reframe things, because then you do have to kind of look back and be like, this isn't just let's remove something out of your body and never think about it again. This is now a part of who I am. And it's also a reminder to myself to be kinder to myself, to give myself more grace, and to always make sure that I'm living from a place where I don't think that this would ever happen again. And so I think it should be kind of an awakening, if you will, to kind of see what is out of balance within yourself. And so that's where I really realized that my stress obviously wasn't, aligned with my belief system. And so I think that is a beautiful way to reframe, to be honest.
Right, because there's so much that we might lose about our experience if we just close our eyes and try to forget about it.
I agree. And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people just close their eyes and have the surgery or have the treatment and just never think about it again. But that's not how I think. I like to think that I have a growth mindset and that I'm always learning not only about the world around me, but about myself as well. And I think that when you're in this fixed mindset and you don't go deep into why things happen, that things will happen again. So it turned more into like an inner learning project for myself.
Amazing. Wow. Tell me about Reiki. I know a little bit about it. I've had it done with me once or twice. Somebody suggested back in my 20s, I was diagnosed with hypertension. It's just idiopathic hypertension. In other words, they don't know why it exists. And hypertension is such think about things that we have not solved in medicine. It is unsolved. It is an unsolved mystery. In most cases, hypertension is like such a complex interaction with chemicals. So they're just like, just take medicine. That's all you got to do. So I've been taking medicine for it and it's fine. However, at that time, I was like, no, I'm in my 20s. I'm an athlete. I should be able to deal with this some other way. So I went to a Reiki professional. Tell me a little bit about that.
Can I ask you a question? Because how long ago was this?
Gosh, it was when my kids were first born. So, maybe 18 years ago.
I mean, that's amazing that you found a Reiki practitioner. I don't feel like that they were right now. They're very trendy, if you will. Like this spiritual science is so energy is everywhere, right? So I think that's so cool that you were able to experience that. Now I could see a doctor nowadays kind of prescribing and saying you should probably look into other realms. So my sister, she was seeing a Reiki master, and she was going through a challenging time in her life, and she gifted me a couple sessions. And when I went in, when I was leaving, so I live in Los Angeles and there's traffic and drivers are crazy. And I just remember the feeling of driving home. Like I could care less if someone cut me off. Like I just had no cares in the world. And I felt as close to my most authentic self as I ever had. That's how I kind of like to describe Reiki. Obviously, it's an energy healing practice that comes from Japan. And it is something that is actually even in the Bible. It goes back so many thousands of years. And it is something that is so incredibly relaxing. So what it does is it really relaxes and centers your nervous system. So it's almost as if it's a natural anti-inflammatory for yourself. And obviously when our nervous system is relaxed and lowered and we're in a much calmer state, the healthier we are, mind, body, and spirit. And so it's a beautiful, energetic practice. How did you feel when you had Reiki done?
It was very pleasant, first of all, just to have somebody with you sit with them for a while and they talk to you, of course, so it's interactive verbally. And then they, you lay still on a table and they're just, she was just hovering her hands, lightly touching like my kidneys and the ureters. I guess she was focusing on those areas for
that makes sense.
Constriction, right? And it's just pleasant to have someone caring for you. I mean, I at the very least, it was very pleasant. And I wish Courtney was here because her voice is echoing in my head about this. We have begun a journey on. She's actually led me on a journey to get back in touch with my spiritual roots, which come from religious evangelical Christianity, which I've really disavowed. And she gets very uncomfortable when I talk about it because I still have a fondness for like just the traditions and the conveyance of it. How it was conveyed to me is important in my life. And so energy is an interesting thing that I never used to associate that with anything other than divine energy. And I'm learning through a person who calls herself an oracle that we have talked to and work with that being open is a form of energy, that it's about openness and faith, more broadly speaking. So I think the reason I'm telling you all that is my experience with Reiki was at a time when I was really still disavowing and trying to cut off the parts of me that would just believe because someone said, believe. I was very good at that as a kid and was a very faithful religious person as a young person. And so, I think now I'm reconciling that and don't have as much shame about it. I can separate from it. I can separate from the cultural politics of it and understand that there's very unique experiences people have that are totally different than conversations that are happening on social media about religion and beliefs. But it's a very individual experience.
It really is. And to be honest, in my experience, I was raised Jewish and very traditional, not like religious. But now as an adult, I'm finding a totally different, deeper connection with energy, with spirituality. So I think that would be a really cool experience for you. How many years later, just kind of developing your own relationship with faith, because I do believe there's, a huge tie between longevity, happiness, health, and faith, and believing in something other than yourself. So I think it's such a gift later on in life when you can appreciate it even more than you did as a child.
Yeah, that's really rich. I'm coming back to it, appreciating it, reading more about it, and just kind of following my curiosity naturally instead of trying to avoid it. About, like you said, it's in the Bible. There's so much in the Bible. Every time I mention the Bible to Courtney, there's so much like provocative things if we let ourselves be provoked in historical text, religious text. And Courtney always gets really nervous when I say that because, she doesn't want to conflate that with some ideology that people might think we have. And so we're in a growth process of figuring that out, and talking about it publicly helps. I want to ask you about motivation, because I imagine when people come to you for health issues, they come because they want to lose weight, they want to perform better. I imagine athletes have this, performance mindset. How do I get better? How do I win? And motivation is a big one, I imagine, that people deal with. How do you respond to that?
So motivation is so singular to me. And to me, motivation is kind of like if someone's like, I need to get motivated, they're looking for external factors. They're not looking within. And I believe that the key to success in anything comes from within. And it comes from not only the actionable steps, but the connection part. And motivation fades. I mean, you're literally just waiting for a feeling. And that feeling may never come, or it might come and it might be fleeting. So really connecting with your why and having gentle momentum can really get you to where you need to be. I think working with a coach is really important, but a coach that doesn't give you the fish, but teaches you how to fish so you can eat for the rest of your life, right? So a good coach, a good teacher, a good therapist will give you the tools in order to get there. So you're not relying on a fleeting feeling of something like motivation. Does that make sense?
It totally does. Like you're talking about habits that get formed, and the good habits are kind of it's muscle memory, and you don't really have to think about it.
Absolutely.
Like that's the way going to the gym is for me. I'm grumpy. I'm a grumpy old man if I do not go to the gym.
Right.
to the point where I probably need to deal with that and be a little more relaxed. But it's become such a part of my way of getting through the day and managing my energy.
Which is great, but what you've probably connected with is, even though maybe you don't want to go to the gym, which you're not using your motivation, but you're using this momentum of being like, well, I know how I'm going to feel once I leave, and it's going to improve my day. So it's connecting to those feelings, and that's your momentum. Is you always want to connect to how you want to feel afterwards. So I would tell someone, for instance, for working out, how do you feel, before, during, and after? And really connect to those feelings, because that is how you're going to want to feel every single day. And it's the same thing for me with exercise, especially taking walks outside. It's something that I connect with in being in nature. And I know if I'm ever having a foggy brain day, I need to get outside. There's no way around it, because I know exactly what that's going to do for me. And it's going to clear my mind, and I'll feel so much better. So I think there's a big difference between connecting to motivation and connecting to momentum.
Yeah. And what about emotions? Like, has it been hard for you to turn the corner on somebody? They're coming to you for some result, I imagine, similar to therapy, but probably even more so in the nutrition health space. How do you turn the corner on recognizing that, this person is maybe you're dealing with grief, maybe it's anger. There's so much discussed about chronic pain and unexpressed or suppressed anger or rage. Does that ever come up?
It comes up all the time, even when it shouldn't. Even when someone comes in and is not connected with that part of himself, and they're just like, I don't understand. I eat the right way. I exercise every day. Why is my weight staying the same? Well, what's going on in your head? Because if you're not fixing what's going on in here and your stress hormones are elevated, you're never going to get to where you want to be. So health is so holistic. And that's why I went from being a weight loss specialist and a personal trainer to a holistic health coach, because I learned every single side of the spectrum of health and wellness, and none of it should be ignored. it is not a one-stop shop anymore. And thank God it's not. And you get much better results when you kind of dig deep and look at limiting beliefs and look at why you have certain actions and these patterns. And so it's so full circle and holistic at this point. So I do try to bring stuff up. And that's also why I do health coaching with the Reiki piece, because when people are more calm and centered, it's easier to get that part out as well.
Lots of people are talking about GLP-1s, like Wegovy. What's the other one that's out there?
There's so many.
there's a bunch, right?
Yeah.
The weight loss drugs and that are treating diabetes. What is your feeling about how those are being used?
I mean, it's so hard and it's not black and white. Obviously, they're being overused. Obviously, a lot of people are using them without a doctor, checking every level and making sure they're okay. And that's why there's been so many lawsuits and everything. I feel like it's really hard, especially for women, once you enter like a perimenopausal stage, and it's so hard for women to lose weight at that stage. Would I love for everyone to go the holistic route? Yeah, of course I would. But I think it's such a bio-individual choice. And I know people that have had really great success and it's really improved their health overall. So as long as it's something that you've really researched, as long as it's something that you are doing along with a medical professional, I think that, again, it's to everyone's choice.
So it has a place within a holistic,
it has a place.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can we talk about other supplements? Are there things that you typically recommend? I know people know that I've struggled before I started treating what I now consider a form of depression, which I think is a weird term because it includes so much brain chemistry across domains, not just mental health. Interesting research that we did some reporting on that came out that said there's a gene, they're discovering genes that are responsible for the whole panoply of emotional, attention, behavior disorders. It's not just like, it's almost like there's the analogy is what we do now in mental health is tell people, like, they come in for like a cold. So they have a runny nose, they have a sore throat, and they have a cough. And what we do is say, in mental health, we say, you have a cough disorder, so we're going to give you serotonin for that. You have a sore throat disorder, we're going to give you a different medicine for that. And 3 different medicines. So it's, instead of saying you have a cold, and these are all part of the cold. This is kind of a new dawning in psychiatry, thinking about them holistically. But it raises the question of supplements. Lithium was one that was recommended by my doctor, and for people who have history of Alzheimer's or dementia. I think that there was some studies in Finland with trace elements of lithium in the water supply, and those people had very low rates of Alzheimer's. What are some of the top things that people are asking you about other than GLP-1s?
Okay. Cut me off whenever you want, because this may be like a long answer. So I have a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, definitely get a blood panel with your doctor. If you can find a functional medicine practitioner that is like knows both sides of the holistic health and traditional, like, go for it. You've got to be very careful when it comes to supplements. Now, there's a lot of people that naturally are low with vitamin D, and that can cause a lot of disease and disorders. So making sure that your vitamin D levels are good. So I would take like a liposomal. I do right now, vitamin D in my smoothie every day because I do run low. And so that I think that's really, really important. As we age, creatine, a really clean creatine can be great. But going back to your thought process of, okay, it's so funny. So for Reiki, if someone's having throat issues, I'd be like, well, let's open that throat chakra. Let's like really work on this area. So I think about obviously the chakras, but also I think about, for instance, if someone comes to a doctor in Japan and they have quote unquote depression, a Japanese doctor will almost likely tell them to get in nature, because your cells do change. And so that is something that I have changed within myself. And I'm even if it's 20 minutes and I got in a quick 20-minute walk in like one of my favorite trails, that is something that I have made a non-negotiable in my life since my cancer diagnosis, that I do a few times a week, is really getting out in fresh air and be amongst the trees. I think that nature is the most underrated medicine in the entire world, to be brutally honest. So the more we can connect and ground, the better. But when it comes to all the other supplements out there, I think the best thing you could do is really, make sure with your blood work that, you're not having any deficiencies. I think magnesium is also a great supplement, but you have to be so careful nowadays and make sure that whatever supplement you choose, that you work with someone, it's a third party verified. You don't get them on Amazon. You're going straight to the source because they're not regulated that well here.
Mm-hmm. So the advice is get a holistic sort of view of what you need and don't just take random things.
Oh my God,
right?
no. So many people because it's everywhere. We're like being fed it all the time. Like the green powder, there's just so much out there that you really need to do your research. Another thing I learned after having cancer is you need to become the CEO of your own health. So do research on everything before you take it. And if you're unsure, ask a professional as well.
Right. And we have to say now, like, you have to do research on your research because it's AI generated.
Absolutely.
And you have to ask the damn thing, like, where are you getting this shit? Like,
it's so true. It's so true. It's even more scary now. Mm-hmm.
It's more difficult to actually see where your information is coming from. So, yeah, my goodness. Let's see. What about self-discipline? We talked about self-discipline. I want to talk about the sort of borderline between self-discipline and self-punishment. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure you know some personality types that come in and you're not going to get them to do anything kind to themselves.
Right.
Like they think of everything as a black and white win or lose type of scenario. Mm-hmm. And also, and Courtney and I talk about this. We've had several guests on our show that are feminists and talk about the patriarchy and like that influence of masculine energy, whether you want to call it toxic masculine energy, the Ken masculinity, and that has an effect, right, on all of us, men and women. Like, how do we counter this winners and losers type of mentality, and who's on top?
I love that question. So number one, I would let someone know that you don't need to do everything today. Like, get that all or nothing mentality out the door. So I believe that having like a loose schedule is self-love. But again, it's such a fine line. So for instance, what I do every single day is I make sure I get mindful movement. I used to call it exercise. I don't call it exercise anymore because some days it won't be exercise. Some days it'll be a nature walk. I listen to my body. If my body doesn't feel like doing a strength training workout that day, then I just kind of pivot to something else more gentle. So I'm always connected with my intuition and what I need. So I still hit my marks, but they change every single day. And I'm very, very gentle with myself. And if there's a day that I miss any form of movement, it just didn't work out that day. It's how you get up, the following day and kind of get back on the saddle, if you will. But it should never be an all or nothing mentality. That's where it can get incredibly toxic. So, even healthy things, and I always teach my children, too much of a good thing is not good at all. Even things that are quote unquote incredibly healthy for you. And so I think it's really learning the balance in life is the key.
Can we talk about burnout? I'm not sure if you've experienced that, but I have. And that was the beginning of me starting to acknowledge and admit to myself that my body was telling me something I was ignoring as a healer, as a therapist, the amount of giving and then not understanding how that is metabolized for me emotionally. So I had to really change my mindset on how I approach my work, caring for others. And it's still a work in progress, but it moved for me quite a bit from being starting to feel like a curse. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so talented at this. So people need it and want it. And I'm never going to get away from that. do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that that has a lot to do with the overgiving and not setting boundaries, really, is when burnout happens in all areas of life. And I've definitely felt burnt out, and I felt overextended in so many different ways. And that's where nowadays, and it's so funny to me how for so long our society didn't believe that healthy boundaries was something that you should be proud of. For some reason, we were told to work a certain amount of hours every single day, and on the weekends, just doing everything with the kids. And like, what about yourself? Of course you're going to burn out. Like, so, if you think about other countries around the world, people have siestas. Every business is closed in the middle of the day because people are going home, resting, taking care of their body for the rest of the day. Why don't Americans have that gene? We really should. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with us? Why is this hustle culture like such a thing? And so I think learning healthy boundaries, when to say no in a beautiful way, is one of the best and healthiest things anyone could do for themselves.
It can cause some ripples, though. It can cause some backlash, right?
It can, but then you have to, just like you have to become comfortable with not caring what every single person thinks about you as well, and how freeing of a mindset is that?
Right. Yeah, people are going to react negatively towards it, and it's just like if you're like what I've learned in publishing, like not everybody's going to like what you have to offer. Those are not the people that you're meant to connect with. Mm-hmm. Right. So like kind of like you said earlier about your friends and realizing how much you are giving and hosting everything, you pull back and then you realize who's really there and who kind of falls by the wayside, and it's more quality over quantity, I guess.
Oh, 100%. And also what I tell my clients is, like, for instance, let's say I have a client who really, really, really wants to focus on their health and their nutrition. And they go out with a certain group, and the group only eats burgers and fries, and they are so afraid to order that salad. And I ask them, like, what do they say to you? And they'll say they make fun of me and whatever they're saying that's so hurtful. And I was like, well, when you order a salad, it's like holding a mirror up to what they're eating and what they're doing to their body. And they're being reactive, and it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with how they feel about themselves. So I think it's that mindset shift when you are setting those healthier boundaries and you are concerned of the backlash. Literally has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with the other person. And I'm sure you can appreciate that.
It's my mantra. It's what I try to teach all the time. And it comes naturally to me. I realize that I'm stuck in a projection sort of loop. That's what I refer to it as. Like, you're doing something, I'm provoked. I think it's your fault because you're doing this because I'm provoked. Instead of being like, well, wait, why am I provoked? How do I feel towards that part of me that's provoked? Can I get a little space from it? If not, then okay, then I got to do something to deal with this other than tell you have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Because that's usually where people get into fights and escalating conflicts. But if we come and say, like, look, I'm struggling, and this happens with Courtney and I all the time, happened yesterday. We were disagreeing over something, and I said, I'm actually really struggling right now to focus because of the way I was feeling that day and at that moment because of other things. And she had no idea. She just thought I was being like a bad listener and just dismissive. I'm like, no, I'm actually struggling. So instead of putting the focus on her, telling her to do something differently, I was able to say, I'm struggling. I could use some support right now. And that just changed the angle. Like, she's like, all right, we'll come back to this. It's really okay.
No, absolutely. And thank you for you're able to express that to her.
I mean, I guess I feel lucky to have the training that I have, because in the stressful situations that couples bring in, you won't survive as a couples therapist if you're just giving people solutions. You have to have sound models to work from that will lead to the results. Kind of like the things you're talking about, these behaviors or small movements that you teach people to make. It's not about how do you agree about whether you're going to have kids or not, or whether you're going to get him to stop drinking. It's more about the smaller things people really have missed a long time ago, and they're missing it every day. They're missing these small moments of opportunity to sort of break down a little bit, break down their rigidity, break down their beliefs into something like, well, part of me thinks that you're wrong because of this, but another part of me just doesn't want to argue and wants to just have dinner and have sex.
Right.
And so, like, to be able to put those two together in the same room, it just brings forward we talked about energy, but it brings forward this more diverse kind of energy, more flowing energy, where you have more access to who I am, not just that one singular thing at that moment. And
That's
curiosity
beautiful.
is the other big thing.
Absolutely.
If we can be, curious about something, it makes it changes immediately from what's wrong with me to what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And where am I? Like, related to this so-called problem, what's my relationship to it? Where am I?
You have to really put the ego aside for that to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can be scary to ask those questions. It brings us back to talking about faith. Like, I've instinctively, maybe you can relate to this, but that the culture of religion that raised me was just sort of burned into my mind, an instinct that my nature is to be able to trust. That is something that is safety, trusting and submitting to something you don't know. So a higher power, a higher whatever, is a good thing. Mm-hmm. As opposed to encoding that in some traumatic fashion, which certainly I did as well, because it can go way too far, and you lose your sense of self. You kind of self-deprecate to the point of shaming, self-deprecating, and that happens in purity culture. So it's a balance. It's definitely a balance.
Absolutely.
We talk a lot on this show about relationships. I didn't chat with you about this before coming on, so feel free to answer whatever you want to answer about this. But what have you learned in your intimate relationships as a partner, and like how you show up? How does it make a difference?
Just with my experience of like cancer and after cancer, just in general.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are your relationships like? Your partnerships. I don't know if you have a primary partner, but like that for a lot of people is a source of great comfort, and it's also a source of great provocation. Right. Right. So, what is that something you talk about or think about?
It's interesting because my most intimate relationships, a lot of them, not all of them, a few of them really have shifted over the last couple of years. And it has been a huge awakening for me. And a lot of it, I think, had to do with me always being the caretaker for everyone, and how I did change that a lot, and really learning the give and take of intimate relationships. And it also came with me learning more about myself as well. And it kind of brought up natural, in my opinion, healthy boundaries that not everyone were comfortable with, because I spent so much of my life without creating them, that sometimes creating the boundaries can really be off-putting for a lot of people as well. And I'm a huge communicator. And so have you read The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins at all?
I've read some of it, and some of it I really like, and some of it I'm just like, wow, there's a lot of words being used here.
Yeah. I love hearing therapists, like how they feel about the book, because there's so many different answers. But it was a really great book for me because it really, taught me, you've got to let people be who they are, and you've got to kind of learn when to hold them and when to fold them. Some relationships, even though you've had them for so long, might not be healthy for you in this new level of life that you're in. And it's, I think that being really open and communicative and listen and be heard, I think you need all of that. And I think I let a lot of my needs go for so long, and that now I'm very aware of what I need in life. And, I'm at a happy place in it, but it has dissolved some close relationships.
Yeah, things move around, right? The chessboard, the playing field changes as you move positions.
Yes.
Something we have to obviously understand.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Mel Robbins, so just for our listeners who aren't familiar, and again, I'm not like a Mel Robbins devotee, but she, you mentioned the "Let Them" mantra. She's big into giving mantras, and some of them I use with my clients, and I use every day. One of them is, today's going to be a good day.
Yes.
And then I try to follow up that with, when I remember to do it, how is it going to be a good day?
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of gives my brain something to think about as things happen. What was the good thing that happened here? Where is it? And that curiosity, puzzle solving is actually good. It's like cats trying to find a hidden toy or something. It's like the brain really likes to do it. And then whatever happens to me, I can handle it today. I'll be able to handle anything that happens or something like that. So those are big ones. But the let them, right? It's a twist on, I think, fuck them, right? Like, as opposed to like.
No, not always. Not always.
No,
I think it's really let people who they're going to be. You shall not try to control anyone.
That's what I mean.
Could
Yeah,
be your children.
It's the opposite.
It is the opposite. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. It's reversing the natural instinct to say,
yes,
you're a problem. You're destroying the environment. You're destroying people's lives, and screw you. As opposed to, well, okay, you're just doing that, and I can accept what you're doing.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You either accept it, or you choose to meet it head on, or you choose to walk away from it. But it's your choice of how you're going to handle that situation. Yeah. I love Mel Robbins. I'm a huge fan of hers. And I do believe that there's some amazing mantras that everyone should start the day off. And you actually just said a beautiful one. I think that when you program your mind to expect beauty throughout your day, you will see it a lot more. So I had a guest on my podcast, Kathy Heller, who is an amazingly beautiful spiritual mentor. And she wakes up every day saying, I am someone, I am some of the one. And she just says, like, I can't wait to see what unfolds for me today. Right. So it's just kind of, and I start off my day every morning in gratitude, and I can't wait to see what's in store for me. Even if there is a storm brewing in my life, I wake up with gratitude and I go to bed with gratitude every single day, no matter what is happening in my life. And I think that once you program your brain to see the beauty, you will start seeing it so much more because it's everywhere.
We really need to hear that now. I think more than ever, there's so much doom and gloom and, activation around, fighting what we're seeing. And there's just sort of a war for our attention. And how do we stay positive in that? And how do we stay nourished and not inflict more casualty just because of, trying to be right about something? Tell me about your podcast, Never Miss a Monday.
Yeah, I love it so much. I just celebrated a year of the podcast, and it has been, thank you. It's been a major labor of love. I just think there's so much beauty in starting, not necessarily starting over, but starting fresh every single week. And I really believe that how you start Monday, if that's like the first day of your week, will really set the tone for the rest of the week, for the rest of the month, for the rest of the year. And so just giving yourself a lot of grace. I have a lot of people that come on with phenomenal survivorship stories, mindset, health, wellness, all of it. And it's just an inspirational cup of tea to start your day, if you will.
That's really great. I'll be sending people your way because I think what you're doing is really fitting. It fills an important niche.
Thank you.
So anything else you want people to know about what you're up to or where they can find you?
I do health coaching and Reiki healing in person or remote, so you can see me all over the place. I'm also a personal trainer, and I would just love to connect with each and every one of you.
Really appreciate your energy and what you brought here today. Stacey Garcia, thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much, Keith. I knew I was going to like you the moment I saw you wearing a Beatles shirt.
No, believe it or not, it's Queen.
Oh, is it Queen?
Yeah.
From my view,
you
it
can't
looks
see
like
the heads.
oh my God. Well, that's cool too. I'm all about Queen as well. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate the conversation and time.
Yes, same here as well. Thanks for listening to Tripping Over Love. Subscribe now to make sure you get the latest episode and drop us a comment or a question. See you next time.